Colin is a professor at Bristol. So Colin, over to you.
Hi, well, thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. Just a little bit about me. I'm Emeritus Professor of Earthquake Engineering at the University of Bristol. I retired from my substantive academic post back in 2019. And since 2016, I've been closely involved with the Institution of Civil Engineers Southwest region in developing something called the Southwest Infrastructure Partnership, which is a bit like the MPA in the sense that it's a self-organizing forum of infrastructure stakeholders who've got together to have conversations in a neutral space about how to deliver better infrastructure in the Southwest. My well, I'm an earthquake engineer by background. I've always had a very strong interest in understanding infrastructure as a system of systems. I've worked closely, for example, with Jim Hall, the current ICE president. In fact, he was one of my students, my undergraduate students. Yes, I'm that old. And I've been very closely involved over my career with things like UCRIC, which you may have heard of, which is a big infrastructure research activity. And really all the learnings I got from that research have really fed into how we've shaped the Southwest Infrastructure Partnership. And what I'm going to talk about this morning is just some of the underlying principles that we've been applying to build it as a learning community, because the last 10 to 15 years or so of my career, I worked closely with learning scientists and cognitive neuroscientists to really look at infrastructure as a learning process. What we do is everything we do is about learning. But in fact, if you look at engineering education, we do very little about the formalities of learning. So I've been building up and helping to steer SWIP from this learning science background. I'm just going to sort of touch on some of the principles that we've used in building SWIP. So if that's an introduction about me, if I start sharing my slides, is that okay?
Yes, please do. Thank you.
Hopefully it will work.
I love the fact that SWIP, the Southwest Infrastructure Partnership, is sort of self-organising, that it is, it's very much in line with some of these regenerative and emergent principles that we keep hearing about. So, yeah. And Colin, if you'd like to share, send them over by email. I'm sure Manon or I could share.
I'm just trying to, why isn't that coming up?
They keep improving Teams and then...
Well, one of my problems is I don't use it very often these days, so I'm trying to master the technology again. Bear with me.
No problem. It's like me when you put me on Zoom or the Google one.
Here we go. Here we are. This is the one.
The thing about Teams improvements is they're usually unannounced and unanticipated.
Yes.
Yeah.
You only encounter them when you go to use them.
Indeed.
Okay. Can you see that?
We can indeed. Are you able to make it full screen?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. There we go. Okay.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Thank
okay.
You.
So it's going to be a whistle-stop tour. I put a few extra slides in just in case anybody's interested in delving into some of the detail, but I'll skip over some as I go through because I realize we haven't got a huge amount of time. So the first thing to say is that all this work is built on about 25 years worth of research from a whole host of research projects funded by the UKRI, EPSRC, and the other research councils. And there's a lot of people being involved with developing the ideas that we've built SWIP on. So it's not just about me. I'm recently taken over as chair of the SWIP steering group, and I'm also an IC policy fellow for subnational infrastructure decarbonisation. So what I'm going to do is just start with the acknowledgements, saying just to acknowledge all the people who've helped get us to where we are. Then I'm going to briefly say what SWIP is and what it's achieved, and then just touch on some of the sort of principles that we're building SWIP around. So, as I say, there's lots of research projects which I need to acknowledge going back many years that have built the principles, and lots of people who are listed on this slide who've been closely involved with developing this. So I'm really just giving an overview of their collective contributions here. So let's ask the question, why a SWIP community? The Southwest is unique in that it's a huge peninsula. It's essentially a rural community punctured by a few urban centres. It's also got an unusually large seasonal population change. The population of the Southwest trebles in the summer with all the holidaymakers. So that's a huge bulge of demand on infrastructure and other services. And it also means the local economy has this big bulge in the summer months, and then there's not so much happens thereafter. We've got very long distances. I learned the other day that the tip of Gloucestershire up here is actually closer to Scotland than it is to Land's End. So you've got over 225 miles to distances. It's on a limb, literally on a limb. All the arterial routes, the transport routes and so on, flow from the Bristol area down to Cornwall. And we've got very little route redundancy in the region. And unlike, say, the Midlands, where you've got cross-cutting motorway and railway networks, in the Southwest, we've just got the main ones which are running down the peninsula. So there's not a huge amount of redundancy or resilience as a consequence. You've got increasing dependency and isolation from the east to the west. So the Bristol area is one of the wealthiest areas in the country. Cornwall is one of the poorest. And that's because it's out on a limb. But the whole region works as a whole system shaped by this peninsular geography, and we've got to recognise that. And if we can do things, particularly on the transport aspect, say in the Western Gateway area, which is the Bristol area, which can have significant effect of what happens down in Truro, for example. Yet, as you'll see, the governance is localized to the extent that it's not always, these sort of longer range impacts are not always considered. And we've got this really fragmented governance and accountability map. Lots of local authorities, the main utilities and railways, transport systems and so on are governed and run by different businesses and companies which have different regional distributions. The sort of governance, there's no single body that looks after the whole of the Southwest. We used to have local enterprise partnerships and travel to work regions, but all that picture is changing. So we've now got pan-regional partnerships for the moment, and we've got two subnational transport bodies in Peninsular Transport and Western Gateway. Confusion because Western Gateway describes two different areas and two different functions. And we've got this frequent change. We've got no overarching strategic body. There's no Southwest minister. The Southwest has got no single powerful voice in Westminster. And when we started SWIP, we were fearful that the Southwest will become the new neglected North, which was the focus on the North back in the middle of the 2010s. And when we looked at the decarbonisation challenge, it was clear that somebody needed to start joining things up, joining the thinking up across the whole of the region. Essentially, we need a guiding mind function, which is just helping ensure that the joining up happens and happens persistently, because decarbonisation, net zero is forever. It's not just for 2050. So we need a mindset which understands that. We need mechanisms for managing that. So that was the motivation for setting up SWIP. Nobody else was looking at this. And a group of us in the ICE Southwest were concerned about how we were going to join things up. So we just started meeting. We gradually drew in senior people from different infrastructure bodies and infrastructure stakeholders, discussing how we could try and join up thinking. I got a bit of seed corn money from the university to help structure the conversations. And what that led to, first of all, was a focus on how we deliver net zero in the region. And we ran a series of workshops to tease out what was stopping us delivering net zero in the region. And this really helped us understand that SWIP could be a valuable neutral forum where we could get the whole infrastructure value chain into the same room, or representatives, obviously, of the value chain in the same room. So we could have conversations in the way that you can't have in your normal commercial contractual relationships. So you'd be able to stand back and chew the cud and try and connect up thinking in a better way. We structured these net zero conversations around the 6 carbon budget, and we followed a diagnostics methodology that we developed earlier in one of our research projects called Urban ID, where we'd worked in diagnosing problems in urban environments, and that proved to be very successful methodology, which we adapted to help build the SWIP community. We started work in 2020. We had 2 pilot face-to-face workshops. Then COVID hit us. And then we had to go on to 3 90-minute online workshops, which were incredibly successful. Asking different questions: what's stopping us? How do we join it all up? And working out how we should join it up and remove the barriers. And coming out of that was a net zero route map and ultimately a vision for Southwest infrastructure, the kinds of things we need to be able to do into the long term to ensure we have effective infrastructure. It was supported by other research projects, including one from the University of West of England that was looking at decarbonising freight at the time. We got a vast amount of information collected on Miro boards, which we are still digesting, and we were able to analyse that through some of the research methodologies that we'd earlier developed. So that gave us a good basis for starting drawing the whole infrastructure community together in the Southwest. Key thing was that we established an understanding that what we're actually trying to do in terms of decarbonisation or delivering sustainable, resilient infrastructure is that we're decarbonising the metabolism, if you like, of the Southwest. It's a system of systems problem, with energy and material flows and transformations being key to it all. I haven't got time to go into the sort of the academic subtleties of all of this, but essentially it's about infrastructure being a conduit for moving energy and materials around, enabling us to extract benefits from that for the benefit of people. And it's a holistic system, so it's got to include the environment, ecological systems, people, the whole works. And that was an important kind of starting point to help people pull their thinking together, because it was clear that nobody had this sort of shared viewpoint at the time, but it gradually emerged from all the conversations we had, recognizing that net zero and indeed sustainability and resilience are just one of many important societal outcomes, and they're all interdependent. But infrastructure is at the nexus of it all. So understanding the purpose of infrastructure, not just as individual artifacts, but as a system of systems, we recognised that was crucial. What came out from the study was there was a great appetite to tackle the decarbonisation challenge, but nobody really knew how to do it. Nobody's decarbonised at scale before, with many ideas, but few of these are proven. That's even now, moving on 4 years. Most of those aspects are poorly understood. most components and technologies and solutions are far from mature. Many development pathways are uncertain. And as a consequence, many of the people in the room were saying, we'd like to invest, but actually it's just too risky. There are too many uncertainties. So that was a key barrier that was identified. And we recognized that we need to learn a lot and quickly. And it was really about joining up our learning and practice, building the necessary new common mindset. So we've got a collective view about what decarbonisation is about, how infrastructure works, and crucially recognizing that the fundamental challenge is for us to build new value chains which will deliver decarbonised, sustainable and resilient infrastructure services into the future. So all that came out of these conversations, and we continue to sort of discuss these ideas in the stuff that SWIP's doing at the moment. So this mindset shift is crucial to what we're trying to do, and this is where our learning theories help us structure what we do to shift our mindsets. Recognizing that net zero, resilience and sustainability are each outcomes of how we choose and enable ourselves to live and behave, and infrastructure is about shaping those choices and options. None is it an independent bolt-on. All are interdependent and emergent system properties. So it's taking a complex systems view. They're all interdependent with other life outcomes like health, well-being, and so on. And we recognize that these are the characteristics of a flourishing community. And this idea of a flourishing community is a central concept to the way SWIP's thinking is developing. We're about enabling flourishing communities. If you look at the dictionary definition of flourishing, it's growing vigorously in a congenial environment, and essentially infrastructure is part of that congenial environment. That's what we're trying to do, to build something which is congenial so people have an opportunity to flourish if they choose to do so. All of this means that we need to look at all these outcomes holistically. We can't look at them separately because they're all interdependent, and infrastructure is about shaping these beneficial behaviours. Also, a key conclusion was that simply decarbonising business as usual will not deliver net zero. The system architectures are poor. We need to improve the overall architecture of the system. So changing everything is really part of it. I'm not suggesting we go down an Elon Musk route, but we do need to change everything gradually with a plan. Also recognizing that net zero is forever. A lot of people were focusing on delivering it by 2050 without a recognition that actually we have to do it forever. And that was part of the mindset shift which we managed to start implanting. And as I say, it's all about developing new, sustainable, resilient and decarbonised market chains, value chains, and the markets, the skill sets, the supply chains and everything actually realise those value chains. So those are some key concepts which we've managed to coalesce around within the SWIP community, and those guide a lot of our conversations now almost automatically because we talked about it so much. And coming out from those conversations was a net zero route map. Whilst it was focused on net zero, actually this route map applies to everything that we do. And it's not a conventional kind of route map with very clear strands of activity. It's really identifying three key pillars that we have to maintain if we want to do anything. It's about having the right mindset. In this context, it was about the net zero mindset, understanding what net zero is about. But that applies just as much to wider sustainability and resilience issues. And driving leadership at all levels through that mindset. So that we've got active people who've got a common viewpoint, who can better connect their actions and capabilities to drive things forward. The second key pillar is literacy, in this case carbon literacy, which is essentially knowledge and know-how So we speak the same language, but we're building up the portfolio of skills that we need to be able to apply consistently in a kind of plug and play sense, so that we can conceive of better decarbonised solutions. And then the third key pillar is collaboration. Nobody's done this before. We don't have established methodologies. We all have to learn collectively very quickly. So improving the way that we collaborate is crucial for this, recognizing that we're building new markets and marketplaces, new skill sets and so on. And that has to be done together. We've got to co-evolve the markets with everything else, so that we've got the capabilities to deliver what we have worked out that we've got to deliver. I was on a call yesterday with the Devon Climate Partnership, and one of the interesting observations there is that many big developers are refusing to install heat pumps in their new housing properties, simply because they can't find enough people with the skills to install the heat pumps. So that's a good example of where collaboration is necessary to build up that capability. And then at the centre of it all, using what we do as living laboratories. So we learn from what we do. We accept a fail fast approach, seeing failure as being important to the learning. And then using digital technologies like digital twins as a way of collecting together the information and sharing that and building this common mindset. And associated with that route map is a vision document where we stood back and sort of distilled out all the information from the conversations and produced a high level viewpoint of the kinds of things that we need to be able to do in the Southwest. And all that is on the SWIP website. As I said, the value chains came out as being sort of central to everything. When we analysed all these over 1,000 data points actually collected in the end, looked at what they were referring to, there were lots of different aspects of the decarbonised, sustainable, resilient infrastructure systems that we were trying to we want to develop. And we could break it down into these many aspects, which I haven't got time to go through here today. But essentially, these aspects identify parts of the value chain that's got to form and be coherent and complete, so that we can go from understanding our intended outcomes from a citizen, ecological and environmental point of view to actually experiencing those outcomes. And some of the biggest barriers we identified here were about policy, consistency of policy, regulation, governance, and so on. There were many cases that were identified by the participants where people knew they needed to do something, but they weren't allowed to because the system didn't allow them to, the governance didn't allow them to, the policy and regulations didn't allow them to. And policy kept flip-flopping. For example, the flip-flopping on electric vehicle mandate, and that was seen as being a great barrier to for people to invest and take the risk of investing in in transforming the way that we do things. So there is actually some work I'm doing at the moment is to convert this diagram into a value stack, to be a guideline for us to help us analyse where the barriers are, how things interrelate, so that we can produce better value chains at the end of the day. I'll skip through all of this. But the sort of final point I would make there, that this is not unique to infrastructure. That you can apply all of this to any part of our economy with any focus that you're interested in. Incidentally, many of you will be aware of the past 2080 standard. That's based on a value chain concept. However, and this is my personal view, it's necessary, but it's not sufficient, because the past 2080 value chain deliberately excludes policy, regulation and standards which are outside the realm of project delivery, but they are still crucial for enabling the project delivery efficiently. So this value chain idea, I think, needs to be developed further, and we've got to be careful that the past 2080 view doesn't silo us in our thinking about this. So very briefly, some of the techniques we've been using to steer this community building: reconceptualizing infrastructure. So recognizing that infrastructure is really about service flows to enable citizens to flourish. And as I say, flourishing is about growing vigorously in a congenial environment. So all the services that we use, from enterprises, environmental systems, ecology, social systems, and so on, if you stand back and look at them, they all flow through infrastructure and provide services to people which enable those people to flourish. And that's an important thing, that they're enablers. At the end of the day, it's individual people's choice whether they flourish or not. But what we're trying to do is give them positive options to adopt that are relevant to their lives and make it easy for them to flourish. And things like resilience and sustainability is really about resilience of people, less about resilience of things. I won't go into that any further, but it's recognizing that everything really needs to be focused around people and their view of the world, and thereby looking at ecology and environment through a human lens, so that understanding the human impact on ecology and environment is really important. Taking the Clifton
Colin,
suspension.
I'm going to have to get you to just come to the last couple of slides, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, okay. So looking at, just to drive this point home, looking at the Clifton suspension bridge, that is providing a safe, affordable, decarbonised crossing service, which enables people like these children and the white van driver to achieve their own life outcomes. So sitting at the center of our thinking is a learning model known as triple loop learning, which has got 4 key boxes here. We are always anticipating the future, understanding the world that we're in, understanding what we want to achieve as outcomes, and then we are working out courses of action that we can execute to achieve those outcomes. Then we apply those actions, experience an outcome, and then on the basis of those experiences, subconsciously, we're always monitoring, verifying and validating what we're doing. We might be tweaking the actions that we've got, or we might decide that our scheme for achieving the outcomes is wrong, so we might change the scheme. Or sometimes our experiences are so profound that we've realized we don't want the outcome that we want. So going through COVID, for example, is an example of an experience which has triggered that outer loop. So all our activities that we do within SWIP are based around this triple loop learning model. And I do go into it in greater detail in a webinar that I did for the civils a couple of years ago. So to get to the very end, just to say, if you want to find out more about what we're doing, we've got the Southwest Infrastructure Partnership website, which has got a lot of information about its origins. You can download the SWIP vision from there and the net zero route map and the various presentations. It's free to join. We welcome anybody who's interested in infrastructure to come and join the conversations, whether you're in the Southwest or not. We have a very successful series of podcasts called Beyond Brunel, which you can find on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and we also announce them on LinkedIn. I gave a more detailed webinar on the principles that we're applying in steering the SWIP development. That's available with a link off the website. And this sort of final thought here is that what we're really trying to create is a neutral forum to foster conversations across the value chain. And if you want to contact me, there's my email address. So I'll stop there.
Colin, thank you. I hope everyone listening feels as enthused as I do about this approach, you know, this gathering of stakeholders, this meeting of minds to try and deal with, you know, the great problems of our age. I'd like to
sorry, I should have just to say, the Institution of Civil Engineers are now looking at rolling out the SWIP model across all the institution regions. So we're talking with them about how we might do that, because the ICHQ has recognised the value of the SWIP approach to broadening out the reach of the institution.
Thank you.